Stop going to market, start going to network. My name is Luke Shalom and I run the agency Atticus, and we have helped over 100 plus agencies from a whole range of backgrounds to generate over 130 million in pipeline within the last 4 years of LinkedIn and over 4 million worth of client results. I have over 75,000 followers on LinkedIn. I have been ranked in the top 3 for lead generation and growth marketing by Favicon in the UK. I think it's like something like 3 times. Now, in this video, I'm going to go through the exact flow that we used on Claude to generate 47 qualified conversations, 9 meeting ready contacts before our client had even landed for his event in Barcelona. Now, I call this the Atticus go-to-network system. And this exists in a time, right, guys, where everybody is doing go-to-market. You know, we find out who we're targeting, we find out what messaging resonates with them, and we'll use some tech stack and tools to personalize messages for them and get people onto calls. But the thing is, though, buyers are just ignoring it. And we built something completely different here. And in 2 weeks, we generated these 47 qualified conversations. And it actually came from an incredibly small sample size. It came from 241 targeted leads at a 53% connection rate, 44% reply rate, and 9 that left their phone and email. And these were contacts at like NVIDIA, Capgemini. And just so you think that like, hey, like this is not just some guy, again, on LinkedIn capping, like I'm sure you've seen those crazy lead magnets promising you the world. These are real statistics. These are dashboard grabs from Valley of real tool, 62% response rate, 47% response rate, 45% response rate. This is legit. But what is the problem with go-to-market at the moment? So you know what? Your buyers have seen it all before, right? Cold outreach is up and response rates, they have plummeted. And yet, you know what, guys? Founders keep throwing more budget and good money after bad at the same broken playbook and wonder why they keep getting the same poor results year on year. And it's because, you know what, this is what's actually happening, right, in your ideal client personas inbox. They're getting tapped up by 5 different reps or 5 different companies selling the exact same thing as you. They have been burned before in the past. Every single buyer we speak to, guys, has been burned. Everybody. People are not new to lead generation. People are not new to your services. And they're ignoring connection requests because they know exactly what comes next. And it's because there is no real intent for them to take a meeting with you. It is just curiosity at best. And on the seller side, now we're dealing with these expensive tech stacks that literally take an engineering degree for us to use. And ultimately, that keeps us dependent on agencies. It makes us sure that we have to basically hire a go-to-market engineer and house to run them. And the campaigns takes weeks to build, right? And buyers, like, they just have no context before you ask them for 30 minutes of their time. It's because, look, your go-to-market assumes your buyer is just waiting to be found. They're not. They're absolutely exhausted at the myriad of different ways that they're being reached out to. So I propose a new game, right? I propose introducing Founder Go-to-Network. This is go-to-network, not go-to-market. And GTN flips this model on the head. So instead of, blasting like these cold lists of strangers, we actually want to identify warm entry points in the market from things that are going on in your network, events, communities, shared context, and start conversations before your buyer ever feels, like they've been sold to. Now, the result here is you're going to get higher intent, warmer replies, shorter sales cycles. So this is what go-to-network looks in practice. So we need shared context, right? We need some sort of event they're going to, not just because it says, oh, we think that by our Apollo filter, it says that you might be interested in lead generation. We need a warm first contact. We need a conversation that starts before the event. So when you get to an event, you actually can have that lead to some sort of sales conversation. So you arrive with that momentum. We need 3 lane targeting. We need to divide up all those valid people that you would classically get from an event that you would go to in your business. And it's going to look like direct buyers, people who can actually sell from you, your ideal client persona, internal referrers, people who could actually act as champions and roll up into those ideal client personas if you're a mid-market or enterprise, and strategic partnerships. And it has to be system driven. It's not rep driven. This entire process was enabled to be automated almost 90% of it. And it was able to generate, as we've said, those, 47 qualified conversations as it stands. And we get into statistics soon, but like you can see here, like it's real stuff, guys, real stuff. So what did it look like? What did it look like to go from 241 people contacted to a 53% connection rate to a 44% reply rate, guys? I don't even think you realize how crazy that is. People are lucky to get a 10% response rate on connection requests these days. To 9 highly qualified ideal client personas from companies like NVIDIA, Capgemini, giving their details for our client to reach out to them at the event. So what do we do first? We started where most agencies don't. We started at nailing the go-to-market fundamentals, because if you don't nail the foundation, none of this will work. For example, before we built anything, we needed to understand, who our client actually sells to. We mapped their ideal client persona across multiple persona groups, right? We documented their daily ops, what their situational context looks like, the pain points, the actual symptoms in their business, of how that problem was showing up. And we then validated with the client and what their client said to make sure that we had an ideal client persona that fitted the needs of the market, rather than something that was just spewed from ChatGPT that would just probably be bollocks, right? And then we were able to build out these ideal client persona qualification agents on Claude Code. So incoming leads could then be assessed for fit without us going back to the client every time. And because this client had a very specific ideal client persona, solutions architects, and their software was actually to help people to reduce their AWS spend at the top of, data compliance stack. So very technical. And we were able to completely replace them from that process. So this idea all started when the client mentioned that they had an event coming up in a couple of weeks. Their event was going to be about 30,000 people going for this event. This classically will work best with 10,000 events and above. And you know what? He usually would just show up, right? And hope for the best. He would hope that, magically he was going to get in contact with the right sort of people. So what we then did is we then really looked at, okay, the event that he was going to. We then really understood, okay, this event that he was going to, what were the ideal client personas who were most likely to be a good fit at the event? For him, it was solutions architects. Then we went and looked at the event in question on LinkedIn. We found out people who had posted that they were going to the event, and people who had just said that they were they just posted about it. And we then segmented that into 2 different buckets of going and maybe going, right? We then scraped using some data enrichment tools, that data from LinkedIn, ran it through Claude Code, so we could get these really high fit lists, and it divided this into high ideal client persona fit, partner or referral, and then it just discarded those leads because we didn't want to hit up people that weren't a fit. And then what we then did is we then went to build the list, right? So once we decided this was the target we were going after, these were the people we could actually get from the event, we did these following things, as I've said. We identified who publicly posted about going to the event. Then we basically enriched it. We labeled the ideal client persona with Claude Code, so we weren't sending messages to random people and wasting bullets, because you're capped at how many messages you can send on LinkedIn. And then we ran it through a clay table. We loaded this into an AI columns, which was scored and segmented every ideal client persona based on, on what we built as it stands. So we had 2 columns, which was okay, going to the event, maybe going to the event, and how much of their ideal client persona were they? Were they a solutions architect? Weren't they a solutions architect? And this gave these hyper-focused lists of not random strangers that might have been going to the event, but people had literally said, hey, I'm going, right? And we then divided these into these three filters: direct ideal client persona, internal referrals, partnership opportunities. So what we then did with this list in clay as it stands, we then plugged this in to a LinkedIn sender, and the outreach was so simple. It was simple, direct, and specific. It needs to be relevant at scale. It doesn't matter, right? if you say to your audience, like, okay, I see that, you are, if you've got a very small sample size, it doesn't really make sense to go super, super specific with like your personalization, for example, when a simple message of, hey, like, are you going to this event could literally be as effective. And we used that and we loaded it up into a tool that we use for LinkedIn sending called Valley AI. And then the pitch, as I said, there was no long pitch. It was context led. It was specific about the event. It was relevant to the person and the campaign. This was live within these days. And some of the like when we launched this, like me and my go-to-market manager, one of my go-to-market managers, the guy that runs all of my stuff, we were sat there flabbergasted at the results. Like, these guys have never been able to get any meetings ahead of events, going to these events. And then they were getting these really qualified conversations. And straight away we rocketed up to, like, as I've said, we rocketed up to roughly, well, not even roughly, like we rocketed up to on some of these events, 62% response rate, 47% response rate, right? 52% response rate on people who said they were going to the event. Right. And then when the campaign and results started flowing in, we were like, yo, like this is crazy. And we didn't just do it once. Like, this wasn't just some trend that, happened once and it was a fluke. This was MWC. This is a completely separate conference and it crushed every time. Well, from this sample size that we have. Right. So when we were able to load these into Valley, we started to get these qualified conversations going in. Before he's even landed, we're getting these 47 highly qualified conversations going, right? And these were people from huge companies like Capgemini, Red Hat, Santander, guys, Verizon, like some of Adobe. The list goes on, like some of the biggest enterprise clients that you could think about that previously were unreachable. You wouldn't even have got a response from these. And that is what happens when you have the right sort of network, because we hit them with something that was relevant to them. We identified that a trigger event of them going to an event was a means for them to start a conversation, started casually, progressed that conversation like to an actual event where we found out some sort of need. We got them to pass over their number, and then our client went and met them at the event and then added pipeline as it stands. Literally that simple. So it's so there's a level of irony now that the new is really about leveraging the brand that you have on LinkedIn, about leveraging a new go-to-market tech stack, but then leveraging the human in-person capacity. And that is what the go-to-network approach, founder-led go-to-network approach is all about. So if you're interested, right, and you've got an event coming up this year, tell us which one you've got going on, and we will tell you exactly how many of your ideal buyers are going to be in that room. So if you DM me after watching this video network, I'll send you the link to book an audit call with us, and you can grab that list of actual buyers that are going to be at your next event who are potentially going to be able to be willing and able to buy your service, a list that you would never have been able to get before. Now, this works best if you are the following things. Like if you've got a deal value of $10,000 plus and the events you're attending are for 10,000 plus people. And if that is you, this could quite literally be the highest ROI call that you've ever had this quarter. Now, previously to this, my client never had been able to get events to work for him. But now with this, he's got a means of getting predictable pipeline and getting warm convos whenever he goes to an event. I look forward to hearing from you. If you're interested to learn more about this, DM me network.